Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is fulfill. Let's take a moment to look at some of the definitions or the ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear fulfill used is to mean to bring to completion or realize something promised or predicted. Okay. To help us understand this first definition, let's make up kind of an example here. So let's say you promise a friend that you will give them a ride to the airport. So on the day that they've requested your help, you go, you pick them up, you take them to the airport. You just fulfilled your promise. You completed it, right? That's what this first definition means. Now, a second related way to use this verb fulfill means to carry out a duty, a task, a role, something that is required or expected. So with this second definition, many people think of their different responsibilities at work, right? And to carry out or to complete them, right? And sometimes as we receive performance reviews at work, our supervisors will look at, are we fulfilling our duties, our obligations as employees? A third way you might hear fulfill used is to mean to satisfy or meet a requirement or condition. Now, I know many people are beginning their school year either this week or maybe last week or in the coming weeks here. And many professors and teachers will use this word fulfill to talk about what needs to be done in order to complete a course or to move to a higher level, right? We can use that verb to describe that as well, fulfilling the course requirements. You might hear that used. A fourth way fulfill gets used is in connection to shipping. So many times when companies receive orders and then they pack and mail that order off, so they're packaging and dispatching an order, we can use this verb to describe that action. They're fulfilling the order. A fifth way you might hear fulfill used is to mean to gain happiness or satisfaction by developing one's abilities or character. Okay. So sometimes you'll hear this used, again, in connection to people's jobs, where they are finding a great deal of happiness, joy. They feel like maybe they're making a positive impact on the world. So we, again, can use that verb to describe the action there. You should know that fulfill is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing to form fulfilling. The past tense and participle forms of this verb can be made by just adding ed. Our base verb, fulfill, ends in a voice sound. L sounds are always voiced. And this means that when I add ed, I'm just going to make a D sound. I'm not adding an extra syllable as I say it. So the past tense and participle forms should sound like this. Fulfilled, fulfilled. Now, you might be excited to know we don't have any additional phrasal verbs to study. So what we'll do is move on to a little verb tense practice. And it's been a little while since we've reviewed talking about how we make sentences about ability. And so we're going to do that today. And you might notice, you might be looking at my screen and thinking, oh my goodness, there's so many examples, so many words here. Don't worry. I've essentially done each example 2 times to illustrate that there are 2 ways that we can talk about past ability, present ability, or future ability. So our 2 ways are either going to be using a modal, right? And we'll talk about that in a second, or using a form of be able to. Okay? The nice thing about both of these ways is we're always going to use the base verb. So in all of my examples today, So I'm never adding a suffix to the verb. No ing, no ed, no s. It's just going to be the base verb. So let's talk first about past ability. So here we're talking about something that one was able to do at some point in the past. There might be time signals indicating that, or it might be implied as part of a conversation or as part of a longer passage. So the first way I can make a sentence with past ability is with the modal could. C-O-U-L-D. Okay, you can see that in my example here. The organization could fulfill the child's wish to go to Walt Disney World. Okay? So they were able to complete or carry this wish out. Okay? Now, I told you there was a second way to talk about past ability, and that's using be able to. So here what I'm going to do is take be and put it in the past tense. So I'm going to use either was or were, depending on what my subject is. So I can take my first example and just change the form. It was able to fulfill the child's wish to go to Walt Disney World. So it's really those two sentences have the same meaning there. The organization could fulfill, the organization was able to fulfill. Now let's talk about negative. Okay? Again, I can use the modal could, but then I'll insert not before the base verb, or I can use be, so my was or were, then not able to, and the base verb. Here are two more examples. We couldn't fulfill our dreams of winning the title. We weren't able to fulfill our dreams of winning the title. This might be a sentence a coach or a player says, noting they were not able to reach or carry out this particular goal. Now, you can also make yes or no questions either with could or with be able to. So we can start with could, have our subject, and then the base verb, or we can use a past form of be, then our subject, then able to, and the base verb. Here are two more examples. Could they fulfill the order on such short notice? Were they able to fulfill the order? Okay, that's tying back to that fourth definition. So kind of want to know, was this company able to package and send off the requested items? Now let's move on and talk about present ability. To do this, I use the modal can. Okay? Or I'm going to use the present form of be. So again, everything else is going to stay the same. Let's take a look at our example sentences. I can fulfill all the duties of this position. I'm able to fulfill all the duties of this position. This might be a sentence someone who's interviewing for a new job says after they've sort of reviewed those duties or responsibilities of a particular role, right? They're sort of suggesting, I can complete all of these tasks. I can do all of these things that are being asked of the person in this position. Now, again, we can do negative present ability. I want to insert not after my modal or after my be verb. So let's take a look at those examples. Some people can't fulfill their basic needs on their own. Some people aren't able to fulfill their basic needs on their own. Again, these two sentences have the same meaning, right? They're just two different ways to express this idea. Now let's look at making a yes or no question in the present. To do this, I start with either my modal, can, and then my subject, and then the base verb, or I use a present form of be, my subject, and then be able to, and the base verb. Here are my last two examples in the present. Can you fulfill the order now? Are you able to fulfill the order now? Now helps us see, or it signals to us that it's the present. Let's move on and talk about future ability. And the first thing you're going to notice here is that in the future, I also use the modal can and then the base verb. That's my first way. So sometimes I have students ask me, well, Katie, how am I going to know if this is present or future? If it's can fulfill, right? So sometimes it's part of our conversation or as part of a longer passage, sort of signaling, are we talking about something now or are we talking about something in the future? But if you're worried about being a bit unclear, you can always use the future of be able to, which will be able to, and then the base verb. That will be a little more obvious if you're worried about someone misunderstanding if you mean now or in the future. Okay, let's take a look at our two example sentences. She can fulfill all the requirements to become a lifeguard. She will be able to fulfill all the requirements to become a lifeguard. So here we're talking about the things one must do to become certified, to watch those that are swimming in pools, could be lakes, could be the ocean, right? There's a written test, there's a physical test to make sure that someone could complete all of those things. So that's why you might encounter that word fulfill in this type of situation. Again, to make negative sentences, I can insert not after my modal can or not after will. Let's take a look at two more examples. They can't fulfill the need in the community. They won't be able to fulfill the need in the community. So here, maybe we're talking about a series of organizations that provide assistance, and for whatever reason, they might not be able to carry out all of those tasks. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question in the future. Here, I could start with my modal, then have my subject, and then the base verb, or I could use will, my subject, be able to, and then the base verb. Here are the last two examples. Can you fulfill the order by September 1st? Will you be able to fulfill the order by September 1st? So here we do have a time signal, September 1st, a date in the future. That might help us know, right, that we're talking about the future here. All of my questions here connect to that fourth meaning of the verb, where we're wanting to know, can someone perhaps make and then ship to us or send to us certain items or things that have been requested. Now let's move on and talk about some words that are related to our verb fulfill. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is the noun fulfillment. Just like our verb, the noun fulfillment can have a number of different meanings. One way to use it is to talk about the achievement of something that is maybe desired, promised, or even predicted. An example of this might be, playing in the World Cup was the fulfillment of her dreams. Okay, so here, that achievement's a goal that many women have had, playing in the World Cup that's been taking place this summer. So that's their achievement of something they desired. Now, a second way to use the noun fulfillment is to talk about satisfaction or happiness. An example of this might be, what do you think the key to fulfillment is? So asking, what's the key to happiness? And different people have different answers to this question. I know someone who's been ill recently who would say health is the key to happiness or fulfillment, that feeling of satisfaction. Others will say money. Some might say or point to their families, right? Feel free to leave a comment if you have a different idea of something that leads to fulfillment. A third way to use the noun fulfillment is to talk about the meeting of a requirement or condition. An example of this, the fulfillment of 125 credit hours with a 2.0 GPA will lead to a degree. So here, again, we're talking about the requirements maybe to earn a bachelor's degree in some area of study. So here are the minimum things one must do to reach that. A fourth way to use the noun fulfillment is to talk about the performance of a task, a duty, or something that is required. An example of this: ethics and honor play a central role in the fulfillment of their duty. Now let's move on to two adjectives. I wanted to take a moment to talk about the adjective fulfilling and the adjective fulfilled. I know I've talked about these different adjectives that end in ing or ed and their differences, but this has been very confusing for many of my students over the years. So I feel like it's something good to repeat again and again just to remember that. So the ing ending on adjectives many times means causing, or here you'll see in my definition, making someone satisfied or happy because of fully developing their character or abilities. An example of this might be, do you have a fulfilling career? Okay, so we might think of one's career, right, the profession they have chosen. Does it cause them to have that feeling of satisfaction and happiness? Okay. Now, the adjective fulfilled and other adjectives that end in ed, we're describing someone or something that has the feeling. Okay, so you can see in my definition of the adjective fulfilled, it means satisfied or happy because one has fully developed their abilities or character. An example of this might be, she feels fulfilled working as a nurse. Okay, so in that sentence, I'm describing this particular person as having that feeling of satisfaction or happiness. Okay. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.